The forest edge grew quieter as Kale Stormpelt approached, creatures instinctively sensing the Alpha's presence and falling silent in deference. Moonlight filtered through the ancient oaks, dappling the forest floor in silver patterns that shifted with each breeze. Kyle inhaled deeply, cataloging the familiar scents of his territory. Pine needles, rich soil, the musk of deer that had passed through hours before. Then something unfamiliar tickled his senses. Human, he stiffened, golden eyes narrowing as he scanned the trees ahead. Humans weren't supposed to penetrate Ravengarde's borders. The magical barrier that surrounded their territory was designed to confuse human senses, making them turn back long before they reached this point. Their minds clouded with sudden disorientation or urgent needs to be elsewhere. Yet this scent was unmistakable, human flesh and blood, with an undertone of something else, something ancient. Kyle moved silently through the trees, his tall, muscular frame navigating the underbrush without disturbing a single leaf. Despite his size, he moved with the fluid grace of a predator, each step deliberate and precise. As Alpha of the Stormpelt pack, he'd patrolled these borders for decades, but tonight felt different. The air carried a charge, like the metallic tang before lightning strikes. The scent grew stronger as he approached a small clearing. There, collapsed beside the gnarled roots of an ancient oak, lay a woman. Kale knelt beside her. She was unconscious, her breathing shallow but steady. Her clothing, what looked like an hospital gown, was streaked with dirt and what looked like dried blood. It carried the distinctive smell of antiseptic, like a hospital or laboratory. Dark hair spilled across her face, partially obscuring delicate features that were pale from exhaustion. He reached to move the hair from her face when he noticed something on her shoulder, where her clothing had torn away. A mark, circular in shape with intricate patterns, glowed faintly against her skin. As his fingers hovered above it, the mark pulsed once, as if in recognition. The sight of it stirred something deep in Kale's memory, though he couldn't place it. His wolf stirred beneath his skin, uncharacteristically interested in this human intruder. Protect, it urged him. Important. The snap of a twig alerted him seconds before a familiar scent reached his nose. Dorian, he acknowledged without turning. His beta stepped into the clearing, tension evident in his stance. Dorian was shorter than Kyle, but powerfully built, with the watchful eyes of a born sentinel. Where Kale's hair was blonde, Dorian's was brown with streaks of gray that betrayed his 100 years. His youthful appearance, a benefit of werewolf longevity. A human, Dorian said, his voice a low rumble of disapproval. This far inside our boundaries? Yes. Kyle continued studying the woman. You know the protocol, Dorian said carefully. We wipe her memory and return her to human territory, preferably before the bloodsuckers catch wind of it. Kale ran a hand through his hair, a rare gesture of uncertainty from the usually decisive Alpha. Look at her shoulder. Dorian knelt on the woman's other side, his eyes widening slightly at the sight of the glowing mark. What is that? I don't know, but I've seen something like it before.
Where?
I can't remember. Kyle frowned, frustrated by the elusive memory. But it means something. Dorian's expression darkened. The barrier shouldn't have let her through. She could be one of those Thornvale hunters using their new tricks. They've been pushing our boundaries more frequently lately. She doesn't have the hunter's scent on her, Kyle countered. And look at her. She's been running from something, not hunting. Dorian didn't look convinced. Still, we should follow protocol. Wipe her memory then. No, Kyle's tone left no room for argument. Not until I know what this mark means. My wolf reacts to her. Dorian's eyebrows rose slightly at this unprecedented admission, but he didn't question it. An Alpha's wolf instincts were sacred, even when they contradicted established procedure. The vampires won't be pleased, he warned instead. The vampires answer to Lucien, and Lucien answers to no one about what happens in his territory. Kale carefully lifted the unconscious woman. She weighed little in his arms, her body limp. As I answer to no one about what happens in mine. Dorian's lips pressed into a thin line, but he nodded. Where will you keep her? The East Wing. The Blue Room. It was one of the more lavish guest chambers in Kael's castle, but also one of the most secure, with a balcony, too high for a human to escape from, and a door that could be easily guarded. "I'll send Mara to tend to her," Dorian said, referring to the pack's most trusted healer. "Good." Kael started back toward the castle, the woman cradled against his chest. "And Dorian, not a word of this to anyone outside the pack. Not until we know more. The vampire scouts patrol the borders too," Dorian reminded him. "They'll report this to Lucien." "Let them," Kael replied grimly. "She's under my protection now." As he carried her through the moonlit forest, Kael couldn't shake the feeling that everything in Ravengarde was about to change. Miles away, in the eastern quarter of Ravengarde, where perpetual twilight cloaked elegant spires and shadowed gardens, a lithe figure moved with supernatural grace over rooftops. Valeria, chief scout of Lucien Nightshade's surveillance network, had witnessed the Alpha's discovery of the human woman from her concealed position in the high branches of an ancient elm. Now she raced across the vampire district, her feet barely touching the ornate gables and stone gargoyles that decorated the aristocratic quarter. The night air rushed past her face, carrying the sweet scent of night blooming. Jasmine from the elaborate gardens below, Valeria reached the imposing black iron gates of Lucien's manor within minutes. Sentries nodded respectfully as she passed, her status granting her immediate entry. The grand foyer, with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, stood empty, but she knew exactly where to find her king at this hour. The library doors opened silently as she approached. Inside, illuminated by dozens of candles in antique silver holders, Lucien Nightshade sat behind a massive desk of polished ebony. His fingers traced the contours of an ancient map spread before him, his expression thoughtful. He didn't look up as she entered, though she knew he had sensed her presence the moment she entered his grounds. "My king," Valeria began, dropping to one knee in deference. "Rise, Valeria." Lucien's voice was melodic, with the faint accent of a language long dead. "What news from the borders?" She straightened, taking in his perfect features, the aristocratic cheekbones, the full lips, the raven-black hair that fell in waves to his shoulders. Like all of their kind, his beauty was a lure, a predator's adaptation. "The Werewolf Alpha has found a human woman near the western boundary," she reported. "She bears a mark, one that glows. He's taken her to his castle." Lucien's head snapped up, his crimson eyes suddenly intense. A mark on her shoulder, circular in design. It emitted light when he approached it. For an instant, so brief Valeria might have imagined it. Something like hope flickered across Lucien's face. Then his expression returned to its usual composed mask. "Did you hear anything about this woman? Her name, where she came from?" "She was unconscious, my king, but her clothing suggested she'd escaped from somewhere. The Alpha seemed protective of her." Lucien's fingers stilled on the map. Protective. He refused his beta suggestion to follow protocol with her, said he needed to know more about the mark. A moment of tense silence followed as Lucien considered this information. Then he rose from his chair in one fluid movement, his tall form suddenly imposing in the candlelight. "Summon the council," he ordered, "and prepare a message for Alpha Stormpelt. If this human bears the mark I think she does, she belongs with us, not with dogs." Valeria bowed. "At once, my king." As she turned to leave, Lucien's voice stopped her. "And Valeria, double the patrols along the western border. I want to know if anyone else comes looking for this woman." "Do you think someone will?" Lucien's gaze turned distant, as if seeing through the centuries. "If it's the mark I remember, then yes, and we must be prepared for what follows." After Valeria departed, Lucien moved to a concealed door at the rear of the library. It opened to reveal a winding stone staircase that descended deep beneath the manor. The air grew cooler as he descended, the walls changing from ornate paneling to rough-hewn stone carved with ancient runes that glowed with faint blue light. The staircase opened into a circular chamber lined with crystal walls. At the bottom, he paused before the ornate sarcophagus made of black stone veined with silver that sat in the center of the sacred space. Candles burned in silver sconces around the chamber, their flames never flickering despite the complete absence of any breeze. Inside the sarcophagus, beneath its transparent crystal lid, lay the perfectly preserved body of a woman. Her skin was pale as moonlight, her dark hair spread around her like a shadow. On her shoulder, the ghost of a circular mark, long since faded, was barely visible. "Nixara," Lucien whispered, his voice thick with emotion, echoing in the chamber. "After all these centuries, have you finally returned to me?" He placed his hand against the crystal lid, his eternal heart, dormant for so long, stirring with something like hope. The Blue Room in Kyle's castle had been designed for human visitors in a more diplomatic era. The four-poster bed was draped with midnight blue velvet, matching the heavy curtains that framed leaded glass windows. Ornate rugs covered the stone floor, and a fire crackled in the hearth, casting golden light across the richly appointed chamber. Mara, a diminutive woman with silver-streaked black hair and the quiet competence of decades as the pack's healer, finished cleaning the last of the scrapes on the unconscious woman's arms. "She's exhausted," Mara reported as Kyle stood near the doorway, arms crossed over his broad chest. "Dehydrated too, but nothing serious that I can find. Her body simply needs rest." "And the mark?" Kyle asked. Mara's expression grew troubled. "I've never seen anything like it. It's not a tattoo. It seems to be part of her skin, like a birthmark. But birthmarks don't glow." She packed her supplies into a worn leather bag. "I've changed her into clean clothes. She should wake naturally before morning." Kyle nodded. "Thank you, Mara. Keep this between us for now." "Of course, Alpha." She hesitated, then added, "Should I prepare a tea for when she wakes? Something to help with the memory wipe?" "No," Kyle replied firmly. "No memory wipe yet. I need answers first." Mara's eyes widened slightly, but she knew better than to question her Alpha's decision. She bowed her head respectfully and left the room. Kyle moved to the bedside, studying the woman's face. In repose, her features were delicate yet strong, high cheekbones, a straight nose, full lips slightly parted in sleep. The mark on her shoulder had faded to a dull glow beneath. The nightgown Mara had dressed her in, but its presence still stirred that strange recognition within him. A soft knock at the door drew his attention. Dorian entered, his expression grave. "A messenger just arrived from Lucien Nightshade," he announced, holding out a sealed parchment. The wax seal bore the imprint of a nightshade flower, the Vampire King's personal sigil. Kale broke the seal and read the precisely penned message. "Alpha Stormpelt. My scouts report you've taken a human bearing a particular mark into your protection. This matter concerns vampire history and prophecy directly. I formally request you surrender the human to my custody immediately for questioning and examination. The peace between our peoples has lasted 3 centuries. Let us not test its strength over this matter. Lucien Nightshade, Lord of the Eastern Dominion." Kale's jaw tightened as he handed the note back to Dorian. "Prepare a response. Tell Lucien that the human was found in werewolf territory and will remain under my protection until I determine she poses no threat to my pack." "That's practically a refusal," Dorian noted, concern evident in his voice. "It is a refusal," Kyle confirmed. "Lucien knows something about this mark. Something he's not sharing. All the more reason to tread carefully," Dorian warned. "The Vampire Council has been looking for excuses to undermine the truce since the Thornvale Hunters began their incursions." Kyle's golden eyes flashed with anger. "The truce has held for 3 centuries. Because both sides respect territorial boundaries. The woman stays." "Yes, Alpha." Dorian bowed slightly, though his expression remained troubled. "I'll post guards outside her door." "Good. And Dorian, have someone watch the vampire border. If Lucien's this interested, he might try something less diplomatic next." After Dorian left, Kyle turned back to the sleeping woman. His fingers hovered over the mark on her shoulder, feeling a strange heat emanating from it even through the fabric of her nightgown.
Who are you?
He murmured. And what have you brought to Ravengarde? As if in response, the woman stirred slightly in her sleep, her brow furrowing as if caught in a dream or a memory trying to surface. The woman dreamed of running through endless sterile corridors, the harsh fluorescent lights overhead, flickering in time with alarms that screamed through the facility. Behind her, voices shouted orders, the heavy footfalls of pursuit echoing off the white walls. Don't let her escape. The specimen is too valuable. Her bare feet slapped against cold tile, her hospital gown offering little protection against the chill. Her shoulder burned with fresh pain where they had just finished. Their latest procedure, extracting fluid from the strange birthmark that had always set her apart. A door ahead, emergency exit, with moonlight visible through its small window. She slammed into it. The night air hitting her lungs, like a shock of cold water, freedom, forest, run. Behind her, the facility's lights illuminated a sign, partly visible through the trees, Thornvale Research Institute. She ran until her lungs burned and her legs gave out, collapsing into darkness at the base of an ancient oak. As consciousness faded, she felt something strange, as if she were passing through a curtain of energy. A tingling sensation washing over her skin, and then another sensation of something inside her awakening, stretching, opening its eyes after centuries of slumber. I am with you now, whispered a voice that was both foreign and familiar. We are home. Lucien Nightshade stood at the window of his council chamber, watching the moon's slow progress across the night sky. Behind him, seated around a polished obsidian table, the members of the Vampire Council waited in tense silence. Alpha Stormpelt has refused our request, Lucien finally announced, turning to face them. The human remains in his custody. Murmurs of discontent rippled through the chamber. Ilara, eldest of the council members with white blonde hair and eyes like frozen sapphires, spoke first. This is unprecedented. The protocol for human incursions has been clear since the truce was signed. Perhaps it's time we reminded the wolves of their obligations, suggested Darius, another council member with a perpetual sneer. A show of force? No. Lucien's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. There will be no violence over this matter. Then what do you propose? Asked Ilara. If the mark is what you suspect, I will send an official emissary, Lucien interrupted. Someone who can confirm whether the mark is indeed the blood seal. And if it is, Darius pressed. Lucien's expression hardened. Then we proceed carefully. If Nyxara's seal has returned in living flesh, it means Vorin stirs in his prison. We cannot afford hasty action. The name Vorin sent a visible shudder through the council members. Even after centuries, the memory of the Eben tyrant's devastation remained vivid in vampire collective memory. Who will you send? Ilara asked. Someone the wolves won't perceive as a threat, Lucien replied, his mind already calculating possible approaches. I need time to consider the right emissary. As the council dispersed, a sleek figure detached from the shadows near the door, Cassian, Lucien's second in command. With his aristocratic features and impeccable attire, he appeared the perfect vampire courtier, his expression a careful mask of deference. A human with the blood seal, Cassian mused, falling into step beside Lucien as they left the chamber. That opens possibilities. It opens dangers, Lucien corrected sharply. If word of this spreads beyond Ravengarde. Of course, my king, Cassian bowed slightly. I merely meant that such a discovery might strengthen our position in negotiations with the wolves. Lucien studied his lieutenant with narrowed eyes. This isn't about politics, Cassian. If the seal has returned, it means Vorin's prison weakens. That threatens both our kinds equally. Naturally, Cassian agreed smoothly. I speak only of ensuring the proper handling of such a valuable asset. She's not an asset, Lucien replied, a rare flash of emotion coloring his voice. She's a vessel. Cassian's expression remained perfectly composed, though something calculative flickered briefly in his eyes. As you say, my king. How shall I serve in this matter? Prepare a list of potential emissaries, Lucien ordered. Someone diplomatic enough to negotiate with the wolves, but observant enough to verify the mark's authenticity at once. Cassian bowed again and departed, his footsteps silent on the marble floor. Alone in the corridor, Lucien's composed facade slipped. He leaned against the cool stone wall, memories he'd suppressed for centuries surging to the surface. Nyxara's smile, her fearless defiance in the face of death. The way her mark had glowed with increasing brilliance as she completed the sealing ritual. "If it's truly you," he whispered to the empty corridor, "why return now? What's coming that requires the seal again?" Outside, the blood moon continued its slow arc across the night sky, casting Ravengarde in a crimson glow that hadn't been seen since the night. Nyxara sacrificed herself 3 centuries ago.
Next on Ravengarde Chronicles, The Awakening. Kale confronts Rhea about the mysterious mark on her shoulder, uncovering a chilling secret. Rhea uncovers a hidden power she should know during a pack burial. Kale's instincts stir as danger looms closer. A child's words spark suspicion among the pack, and a message from the Vampire King threatens to unravel everything.